Ambassador Yun Seo stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. Around her sat representatives from 40 different species. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like floating clouds of gas. She was presenting Earth's newest idea, a cultural exchange program where different species could learn about each other's art and music. Most of the aliens were not paying attention. They whispered among themselves or checked their communication devices. Humans were not considered important in galactic politics. They were friendly and good at talking, but they had no real power. Their military was small. Their territory was modest. They were nice neighbors who caused no trouble. Yunseo kept her voice calm and steady. She had been a diplomat for 20 years. She knew how to hide her frustration. Just as she was explaining the benefits of understanding different cultures, an urgent alarm rang through the chamber. Red lights flashed. The council members looked confused. A message appeared on the main display screen. It was from Nova Haven, a human colony world far from Earth. The transmission was broken and filled with static. A young officer's face appeared, covered in dust and blood. His voice shook as he spoke. "We are under attack. Varathian warships appeared without warning. They are bombing our cities from orbit. We need help. Please, anyone, we have 15 million people here and—" The transmission cut to black. The council chamber fell silent. Yunseo felt her heart turn to ice. Nova Haven was a peaceful farming world. Families lived there. Children went to school there. And now it was burning. On Nova Haven, Private Ji Young ran through the streets toward her military post. She was 22 years old and had only been in the military for 1 year. The sky above her was on fire. Massive Varathian ships hung in the air like dark mountains. Beams of energy fell from them, destroying everything they touched. She reached the defensive bunker where her unit was gathering. Her sergeant was shouting orders. They had to hold the evacuation points. Civilian transports were trying to escape the planet, but they needed time to launch. Every minute the soldiers could hold meant more people would survive. Ji Young checked her weapon with trembling hands. She thought about her parents who lived in the capital city. Were they safe? Were they on one of the transports? She had no way to know. The Varathian ground troops began landing. They came in massive dropships that crashed into the Earth like meteors. The doors opened and alien soldiers poured out. They were tall, covered in thick armor, and carried weapons that hummed with power. Ji Young's sergeant gave the order to fire. The human soldiers opened up with everything they had. The Varathians had better armor and better weapons, but the humans knew the territory. They used the buildings for cover. They set traps in the streets. They fought smart because they were outmatched. The battle raged for hours. Ji Young saw friends die beside her. She saw civilians running in panic. She kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting. Not because she was brave, but because stopping meant everyone behind her would die. In the Varathian command ship above the planet, Supreme Commander Vrath watched the battle. He was enormous, even for his species. His 4 eyes glowed amber in the darkness of his bridge. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. "Why do they still fight?" he asked his officers. "We have destroyed their defenses. We have surrounded their cities. Why do they not surrender?" One of his officers checked the reports. "They are protecting evacuation transports, Commander. They fight to buy time for their civilians." Vrath made a sound like metal scraping. It was his version of a laugh. "Foolish. They sacrifice soldiers for the weak. This is why they will lose. This is why they will serve the Empire." On Earth, in the Military Command Center, Admiral Taijin received the emergency transmission. He was 54 years old with silver hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. He had been reviewing supply reports when the call came in. Now he stood in front of a tactical display showing Nova Haven burning. Lieutenant Commander Byung-ho stood beside him. Byung-ho was the head of intelligence, a quiet man who preferred computers to people. He pushed his round glasses up his nose and spoke softly. The Varathian Empire sent 3 battle groups. They attacked without declaration or warning. This is a full invasion force. Taijin felt old anger stirring in his chest. He had lost his wife years ago to an accident, but he remembered the helplessness he felt. Now millions of people were feeling that same helplessness, and he had the power to do something about it. "How long to get the 3rd Armada to Nova Haven?" he asked. 5 days at maximum speed, Byung-ho replied. "Make it 4. I do not care what it takes. And send a message to all fleet commanders. Full mobilization. Everyone reports for duty immediately." Back at the Galactic Council, Yun Seo demanded an emergency session. The council members gathered again, but they looked uncomfortable. The representative from the Thalian consortium spoke first. "This is unfortunate, Ambassador Yunseo, but the Vorathian Empire is very powerful. Perhaps humanity did something to provoke them." Yunseo felt her calm mask crack. "Provoke them? We were farming wheat and corn. We were raising children. What possible provocation justifies burning cities?" The council members looked away. No one wanted to anger the Vorathian Empire. They were too strong, too dangerous. Better to let humanity deal with their own problems. Yunseo understood then. Humanity was alone. All the years of building friendships, all the cultural exchanges, all the diplomatic work meant nothing when fear was involved. On Nova Haven, Ji Young and her unit had been fighting for 6 hours straight. Half her squad was dead. They were running out of ammunition, but the evacuation transports were almost finished. Just a little longer, a massive Vorathian soldier rounded the corner. Ji Young fired her last magazine at it. The bullets bounced off its armor. The alien raised its weapon. Ji Young closed her eyes. An explosion rocked the street. When Ji Young opened her eyes, the Vorathian soldier was down. Her sergeant had used their last grenade. He looked at her and smiled tiredly. "Last transport just left," he said. "We did it. We saved them." Admiral Tae-jin sat in his command chair aboard the flagship. His fleet was racing toward Nova Haven. He knew they might arrive too late. He knew his forces were outnumbered. But he also knew something the Vorathians did not. Humanity had been preparing for this day since they first reached the stars. They had studied every species. They had analyzed every battle. They had built weapons and trained soldiers while maintaining their peaceful image. They hoped they would never need to use these preparations. That hope was dead now. Tae-jin opened a communication channel. He sent a message on all Vorathian frequencies. His voice was calm, almost sad. "This is Admiral Tae-jin of the Human Defense Fleet. This is your only warning. Cease your attack immediately. Withdraw from Nova Haven. Leave human territory. If you do this, we will consider this a tragic mistake. We will not pursue you. But if you continue, if you force us to fight, you will learn why humanity has avoided war for so long. It is not because we are weak. It is because we remember what war costs. We are giving you this warning out of mercy. Run while you can." On the Vorathian command ship, Supreme Commander Vrath heard the message. Then he began to laugh. His officers joined in. These humans dared to threaten the Empire? These weak creatures who spent their time on art and music? Vrath played the recording for his entire fleet. Let them all hear how desperate the humans were. Let them all laugh at the empty threat. Intensify the bombardment, Vrath ordered. Show them what happens when insects threaten eagles. The warning had been given. The warning had been ignored. Humanity had tried mercy first. Now they would show the Vorathian Empire what humanity had been hiding all along. 4 days later, Admiral Tae-jin's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nova Haven system. The sight that greeted them made even the veteran crews fall silent. The planet's orbital stations were burning debris. Vorathian warships surrounded the world like predators circling wounded prey. Tae-jin stood on his bridge, studying the tactical display. The enemy had 60 ships. He had 32. In a straight fight, humanity would lose. But Tae-jin had not come here to fight straight. Lieutenant Commander Byung-ho handed him a data pad. It contained everything human intelligence had gathered about Vorathian ships over the past 20 years. Weaknesses in their shield systems, gaps in their sensor coverage, patterns in their tactical formations. They fight like they always win, Byung-ho said quietly, because they always have. They do not expect creativity. They do not adapt quickly. 3 months after Nova Haven, Admiral Tae-jin stood before a holographic map of Vorathian space. Red markers showed enemy fleet positions. Blue markers showed human forces. The map was covered in red. Humanity was still outnumbered, but Tae-jin was not looking at numbers. He was looking at patterns. Lieutenant Commander Byung-ho stood beside him, pointing at a cluster of red markers deep in Vorathian territory. "This is Callus Prime," Byung-ho explained. "The Vorathian forward operating base. All their supply lines run through here. All their communications are routed through this station. If we take Callus Prime, we cut off everything they are building for their next attack." Tae-jin studied the defenses. Callus Prime was heavily protected. 20 battle stations, minefields, Sensor networks that could detect ships light years away. It would be suicide to attack unless they did not attack directly. We will hit 12 different systems at the same time, Tae-jin said. Make them think each attack is the real target. While they scrambled to defend everything, we bring our entire fleet to Callus Prime. His officers looked nervous. This was the most aggressive operation humanity had ever attempted. They would be striking deep into enemy territory with no support. If they failed, the fleet would be destroyed. Captain Haewon grinned. She liked aggressive plans. When do we leave? Tomorrow, Tae-jin replied. We end this before they can launch their next invasion. The operation launched exactly as planned. Across 12 systems, human ships appeared and attacked Varathian installations. Each attack was designed to look like a major offensive. The Varathian commanders panicked, calling for reinforcements, while the Empire scattered its forces to defend everywhere. The main human fleet moved toward Callus Prime. They traveled through empty space, avoiding all known patrol routes. Byung-ho's intelligence had mapped every sensor station and guard post. They arrived at Callus Prime in the middle of the station's night cycle. The defenders were caught completely off guard. Alarms screamed as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly inside the defensive perimeter. Hae-won launched with her fighter squadron immediately. Her target was the main communications array. If they could destroy it, the base could not call for help. She dove through a storm of defensive fire. Explosions bloomed around her fighter. She did not slow down. Her squadron stayed tight behind her, trusting her completely. The communications array was protected by shield generators. Hae-won fired missiles with Engineering Chief Kwan's special modifications. They punched through the shields and detonated inside the array. The massive structure collapsed in a shower of sparks and debris. Callus Prime was now isolated. No distress signal could escape. Ground troops landed on the station itself. Sergeant Ji-young led her squad through the corridors. She had been promoted after Nova Haven and given command of a special operations team. The Varathian defenders fought hard. They were brave soldiers protecting their base. But Ji-young's team had trained for this. They moved fast, using flashbangs and smoke grenades to confuse the enemy. They took prisoners whenever possible, killing only when necessary. This was Dr. Soo-jin's influence. She had insisted that humanity should not become monsters while fighting monsters. Every prisoner was treated with respect. Every wounded enemy received medical care. The battle lasted 18 hours. It was brutal and exhausting. Human casualties were high. But when the smoke cleared, Callus Prime belonged to humanity. Admiral Tae-jin walked through the captured station. He saw the damage. He saw the bodies. He saw the cost of victory written in blood and fire. He found Ji-young sitting against a wall, exhausted. Her armor was scorched and dented. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "We won, sir," she said softly. "Yes," Tae-jin replied. "But remember everyone who paid for this victory. Remember why we fight, not for glory, for survival." News of Callus Prime spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Galactic Council watched in shock as humans demonstrated military capabilities they had completely hidden. All those years of peaceful diplomacy had been cover for careful preparation. Ambassador Yoon Seo held a press conference. She stood before cameras from a dozen species and spoke calmly. "Humanity has been preparing for the worst since we achieved spaceflight. We studied every species we met. We analyzed your tactics and your weapons. We learned your languages and your cultures. Not because we wanted to conquer you, because we wanted to survive if someone tried to conquer us." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We are a species that has survived ice ages and plagues. We have fought world wars that nearly destroyed us. We have faced extinction and survived. We came to the stars hoping we would never need to use those survival instincts again. The Varathian Empire took that hope away. Now they will learn what humanity is truly capable of." In the Varathian Empire, Supreme Commander Vrath received the news of Callus Prime's fall with disbelief. This was impossible. The base was supposed to be impregnable, yet these humans had taken it in less than a day. He ordered the execution, of his intelligence officers for failing to predict the attack. He ordered new defenses built around every remaining base. He refused to accept that the Empire might actually lose this war. War Priest Thane watched these executions with growing horror. The gods favored the just, not the cruel. Vrath was becoming a tyrant, killing his own people to hide his failures. Thane began to pray differently. He asked the gods for wisdom. He asked them if this war was righteous. The silence that answered him was more frightening than any response. Admiral Taejin sent another message to the Varathian Empire. He broadcast it from Callus Prime itself, standing in what had been Vrath's command center. "We have shown you what we can do. We have taken your strongest base. We have defeated your fleets. This war can end now. Withdraw to your pre-war borders. Pay reparations for the damage you have caused. Accept peace. If you do this, we will not pursue you further. But if you continue this war, we will bring it to your home worlds. Nobody wants that. Run while you can." Vrath's response was immediate and furious. He mobilized every remaining battle group. The Empire would never show weakness. They would crush these upstart humans even if it cost everything. The war continued for 5 more months. Neither side gained a decisive advantage. Humanity lost more ships than the Empire, but they were building replacements faster. Human tactics evolved with every battle while Varathian doctrine remained rigid. Captain Haywan became a legend. Her fighter squadron had over 200 confirmed kills. She painted a small mark on her cockpit for each one. She did not celebrate these kills. Each mark represented someone who died. But she would not stop fighting until her people were safe. Engineering Chief Quan worked miracles in his workshop. He took broken ships and made them fly. He took outdated weapons and made them deadly. Other species began asking how humans innovated so quickly. The answer was simple. Necessity. Lieutenant. Commander Byung-ho's intelligence network expanded deep into Varathian territory. He recruited disillusioned enemy soldiers who saw the futility of the war. He found civilians who wanted peace. He built a network of people who were tired of fighting. These people provided information that saved countless lives. They warned of attacks before they happened. They revealed supply lines that could be disrupted. They were the invisible army that made human victories possible. The Varathian Empire began to feel the strain. Their economy struggled under the cost of war. Families mourned losses in a conflict that was supposed to be easy. Protests began in the streets of their cities. War Priest Thane saw all of this. He saw his people suffering. He saw resources being wasted. He saw young soldiers dying for a war that served only Vrath's pride. He made a decision. He began speaking, publicly, questioning whether the gods truly supported this war. Other religious leaders joined him. The movement grew. Supreme Commander Vrath tried to silence them. But you cannot silence faith. The more he tried to suppress the questions, the louder they became. 8 months after the war began, Byung-ho walked into Admiral Tae-jin's office with urgent news. The entire Varathian fleet was mobilizing. Every ship they had left. They were moving toward one target, Earth. Vrath was gambling everything on one final attack. If he could take humanity's homeworld, the war would end regardless of losses. It was desperate and dangerous. It was also an opportunity. Tae-jin looked at the star map. The Varathian homeworld would be nearly undefended while their fleet attacked Earth. He could strike back the same way. 2 homeworlds, 2 civilizations. Everything at stake. The final battle was coming, and it would decide the fate of both species. The Varathian armada approached the Sol system like a dark wave. Supreme Commander Vrath stood on his flagship bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the display screens. This was the moment he had been planning for months. The human homeworld would fall, and with it their spirit would break. Behind him, War Priest Thane performed the traditional battle prayers. But his voice lacked conviction. He no longer believed the gods favored this attack. He stayed because abandoning his post would be cowardice. But his heart was heavy with doubt. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Yoon-ho commanded the home fleet. He was Yoon Seo's younger brother, A career military officer who had spent his entire life preparing for this day. Around him, thousands of ships took defensive positions. Every orbital platform was armed. Every satellite had been converted to a weapon. On Earth's surface, billions of people watched the sky. They were not panicking. Evacuation ships stood ready to carry people to Mars and the outer colonies if the defense failed. But most people chose to stay. This was their home. They would defend it. Captain Haywan sat in her fighter ready to launch from the carrier Indomitable Spirit. Her squadron waited with her. They had fought together for months. Some of the original pilots were gone, replaced by new faces. But they were still a family. She thought about her own family down on the surface. Her parents. Her younger sister. If the defense failed, they would die. That thought made her hands tighten on the controls. She would not fail them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Taejin's fleet emerged from hyperspace above the Vorathian homeworld. The planet was beautiful, with purple oceans and silver cities. It reminded him that enemies were people too. They had families. They had homes. That made what he had to do harder, but no less necessary. His fleet did not attack the cities. Instead, they systematically destroyed military targets, orbital defense stations, communication satellites, weapons platforms. They disabled rather than destroyed whenever possible. And Taejin broadcast continuously to the planet below. He explained what was happening. He told them that their leaders had chosen this war. He told them that humanity did not want to kill civilians. He asked them to demand peace from their government. On the Vorathian homeworld, people watched human ships overhead. They expected death from the sky. Instead, they heard messages of mercy. The humans could destroy their cities. They chose not to. War Priest Thane received reports of the attack on his homeworld. He stood on Vrath's flagship thousands of light years away, unable to protect his people. He listened to Taejin's broadcasts and realized something profound. These humans were showing more honor than the Vorathian Empire had. They could take revenge for Nova Haven. They could burn cities the way Vrath had burned human colonies. They chose mercy instead. At Earth, the battle began. The Vorathian fleet crashed against human defenses like a hammer. Ships exploded on both sides. The void filled with debris and bodies. Haywan launched with her squadron. The space around Earth was chaos. Missiles streaked in every direction. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. She led her fighters through the storm, targeting Vorathian ship engines and weapons. Her squadron moved like they shared one mind. They had fought together so long that words were unnecessary. A Vorathian destroyer locked onto her position. She dove, twisted, and came up behind it. Her missiles struck its shield generators. The shields collapsed and human capital ships finished it off. The battle raged for hours. Then days. The Vorathian fleet was larger, but the human defenders fought with desperate courage. Every ship that died took enemies with it. Every station that fell inflicted massive damage first. On the third day, Supreme Commander Vrath received word that his homeworld was under attack. His massive frame went rigid. His 4 eyes blazed with fury. He faced an impossible choice. Continue the attack on Earth and risk losing his homeworld, or withdraw to defend his people and admit defeat. Pride made the choice for him. He would not retreat. The Empire did not surrender. He ordered the assault to continue. War Priest Thane could not stay silent anymore. He stepped forward, his old voice carrying across the bridge. Commander, our people are in danger. The humans could destroy our cities, but they choose not to. They show mercy while we show only destruction. Perhaps the gods are trying to teach us something. Vrath turned on him. You dare question me? You dare suggest we should flee? I suggest we should listen, Thane replied. The humans warned us before this war began. They warned us again after we lost battles. They are warning us now with their restraint. How many warnings must the gods send before we understand? At that moment, Dr. Sujin's research reached Admiral Taejin. She had studied Vorathian culture deeply. She understood their concept of honor. They respected strength, but they also respected opponents who offered fair challenges. She suggested a way to end the war without more bloodshed. A formal duel between commanders. Taejin and Vrath, ship against ship. Winner takes all. All other forces would cease fighting. Taejin knew it was risky, but he also knew the cost of continuing this war. More deaths on both sides, more destruction, more grief. He broadcast the challenge directly to Vrath. One battle between commanders to end the war. If Wrath won, humanity would negotiate surrender terms. If Taejin won, the Varathian Empire would withdraw. Wrath could not refuse. To decline a direct challenge would mark him as a coward before his entire fleet. His honor demanded he accept. Both fleets pulled back, creating a space between them. Two flagships faced each other across the void. Inside them, two commanders prepared for battle. Taejin walked through his ship, speaking briefly with every crew member. He thanked them for their service. He told them they had done humanity proud. If he fell today, they should know they had fought with honor. Wrath did no such thing. He sat in his command chair, confident of victory. His ship was larger, more heavily armed, more advanced. These humans might be clever, but in a straight fight he would win. The duel began. Both ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons tore at shields. Missiles exploded in brilliant flares. The two vessels circled each other like ancient warriors with swords. Wrath's ship was more powerful. Each hit from his weapons caused massive damage. Taejin's crew worked desperately to keep shields functioning. Engineering Chief Quan performed miracles, rerouting power and patching damage faster than it occurred. But Taejin had something Wrath lacked. Creativity. He did not fight the way Varathians expected. He used the debris field from earlier battles as cover. He fired from unexpected angles. He predicted Wrath's movements based on 8 months of studying Varathian tactics. The battle lasted 3 hours. Both ships were critically damaged. Fires burned in both hulls. Crews fought to save their vessels even as they fought each other. Finally, Taejin saw his opening. Wrath's shield generators were failing. One more hit to the bridge and the battle would end. His weapons officer reported target lock. Ready to fire on his command, Taejin looked at the targeting display. He could end this. He could kill Wrath and win the war. Justice for Nova Haven. Victory for humanity. Instead, he opened a communication channel to Wrath's ship. Supreme Commander, your ship is crippled. Your people are in danger. This war has cost both our species too much. I am offering you terms of surrender. We will provide medical assistance to your crew. Your homeworld will not be harmed. All we ask is peace and reparations for the damage you caused. Accept these terms and this ends now. On Wrath's bridge, silence fell. The commander stared at the human ship on his screen. He had been beaten. The human could have killed him. Instead, he offered mercy. War Priest Thane stepped forward again. His voice was gentle but firm. Commander, our people need us to make the right choice. Not the proud choice. The right one. For the first time in his life, Supreme Commander Wrath felt something he had never experienced before. Respect for an enemy. Supreme Commander Wrath sat in his damaged command chair, looking at the human admiral's face on the screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for his decision. The silence stretched like an endless void. Finally, he spoke. His voice was different now, quieter, without the arrogance that had defined him. Why? He asked. You could destroy my ship. You could destroy my home world. Why offer mercy? Admiral Taejin's expression was sad but firm. Because we remember what war costs. Because we hoped you would listen to our warnings. Because mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest choice warriors can make. We gave you 3 warnings, Commander. This is the last one. Accept peace or force us to become the monsters we are trying not to be. War Priest Thane placed his hand on Wrath's shoulder. The old priest's voice was gentle. Our people are watching. Both our peoples. Show them that true strength lies in knowing when to stop fighting. Wrath closed his 4 eyes. He thought of his homeworld under human guns. He thought of all the soldiers who had died in this war. He thought of the warning humanity had given before it all began. Run while you can. They had not run. Now they had learned why they should have. I accept your terms, Wrath said. The words felt like broken glass in his throat. But they were the right words. The Varathian Empire surrenders. Across both fleets, soldiers heard the announcement. Some cheered. Some cried. Some simply collapsed from exhaustion. The war was over. Captain Haewon sat in her fighter cockpit listening to the news. She looked at the kill marks painted on her console. 237. Each one was a life ended. She felt no pride in that number. Only relief that she would not have to add more. On the Varathian homeworld, people emerged from shelters to see human ships still overhead. But the ships were not firing. They were broadcasting messages of peace. The occupation would be temporary and respectful. No civilians would be harmed. Admiral Tae-jin kept his promise. Human forces provided medical aid to wounded Varathians. They helped repair critical infrastructure. They treated their former enemies with dignity. The formal surrender was signed aboard Tae-jin's damaged flagship. Vrath and his senior officers came aboard expecting humiliation. Instead, they were treated as honored guests. Human guards showed respect. The conference room was set with care. Vrath looked at the treaty terms. The Varathian Empire would withdraw to pre-war borders. They would pay reparations for the damage caused. They would establish trade and diplomatic relations with humanity, and most importantly, they would share humanity's warning with other aggressive species. The terms were fair. Painful, but fair. Vrath signed his name with a hand that trembled slightly. "You are better than us," he said to Tae-jin, "not because you won, because you chose mercy when you did not have to." Tae-jin shook his head. "We are not better. We simply remember more. We remember wars that nearly destroyed us. We remember the cost of victory and the price of defeat. We came to the stars hoping to never use those memories. You forced us to remember. Let us both hope we never have to remember again." On Earth, the celebrations were quiet. Yes, they had won. But the casualty lists were long. Entire squadrons were gone. Ships that would never return. Families that would never be whole again. Lieutenant Ji Young returned to Nova Haven to help with reconstruction. The colony was slowly being rebuilt. She walked through streets she had defended, seeing new buildings rising where old ones had burned. She found the memorial that had been erected. Thousands of names carved in stone. Friends she had fought beside. Civilians who had died in the initial attack. She traced her finger over names she recognized and wept. Ambassador Yoon Seo returned to the Galactic Council. She did not ask for their approval or their apology. She simply delivered a message. Humanity has proven we can defend ourselves. We have also proven we value peace even after being attacked. We remain open to friendship with all species. We also remain ready to defend any species facing the aggression we faced. The Council will not dictate human foreign policy, but we will uphold the principles this Council claims to represent, even if you will not. Some Council members looked ashamed. Others looked thoughtful. All of them looked at humanity differently now. Dr. Su Jin established the Institute for Interspecies Understanding. Its mission was to ensure such wars never happened again. She worked with former enemies to build bridges between cultures. War Priest Thane became one of her first collaborators. The old priest dedicated his remaining years to teaching Varathians about the dangers of supremacy and the value of humility. Engineering Chief Kwan received the highest civilian honor humanity could award. He stood on stage uncomfortable in formal clothes and gave a short speech about how innovation came from necessity, but peace was always preferable to necessity. Lieutenant Commander Byung-ho quietly expanded his intelligence network, but now it focused on maintaining peace rather than preparing for war. His agents watched for conflicts and worked to defuse them before they could escalate. Captain Hae-won took command of the fleet reconstruction efforts. She oversaw the building of new ships, always making sure they were designed for defense. Humanity would remain ready, but would not seek conflict. Admiral Tae-jin retired from active service and became an instructor at the Naval Academy. His first lesson to new cadets was about the 3 warnings humanity gave the Varathian Empire. "We warned them before the war escalated," he told his students. "We warned them before we threatened their homeworld. We warned them with mercy when we could have chosen annihilation. The greatest victory is the war you never have to fight. But when war comes, fight with everything you have while never forgetting your humanity. The goal is not to destroy your enemy. The goal is to make them understand why peace is better than continued conflict." Years passed. The scars of war slowly healed, though they never truly disappeared. Human and Varathian children who had been enemies now exchanged cultural programs. Veterans from both sides met to share their stories and honor their dead together. One day, news reached Earth of another aggressive species threatening a weaker civilization. The Galactic Council debated what to do, paralyzed by fear as always. Then Varathian ships arrived alongside human vessels. Supreme Commander Vrath, still in service despite his age, broadcast a message to the aggressors. His voice carried the weight of hard-learned wisdom. "We attacked humanity first. We thought they were weak because they chose diplomacy. We were wrong. They warned us to run while we could. We did not listen. We paid a terrible price for our arrogance. Learn from our mistake. These people you threaten, they have allies now. Strong allies who remember the cost of mercy. Run while you can. The aggressive species looked at the combined human and Varathian fleet. They looked at the determination in that alliance. They made the choice Vrath had not made years before. They ran. The warning had become legend. Across the galaxy, species told the story of humanity and the Varathian Empire, of a war that should have destroyed both civilizations, of warnings ignored and then finally understood. The message spread. Humanity's voice echoed through the stars, not in threat but in hope. Hope that others would be wiser than the Varathians had been. Hope that the cost of learning would not be so high. Run while you can. 3 simple words that contained everything humanity had learned through millennia of survival. A warning. An offer of mercy. A promise of consequences. Ambassador Yunseo stood at the rebuilt Nova Haven Memorial many years after the war ended. She was older now, her hair gray, but her eyes were still sharp. Beside her stood War Priest Thane, equally aged but still standing tall. They said nothing. Words were unnecessary. 2 civilizations that had nearly destroyed each other now stood together, honoring those who died so both could learn to live in peace. Above them, human and Varathian ships patrolled together. Below them, children of both species played in parks that had been battlefields. The war was over. The warning remained, and when other species asked why humanity was respected despite not having the largest military, the answer was always the same. They warned us to run. When we did not listen, they defeated us. When they could have destroyed us, they showed mercy instead. That is true strength. Not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to choose peace when peace becomes possible. The Empire attacked humanity first. Humanity responded with warnings, not immediate destruction. They fought when forced to fight. They won when they had to win. And they showed mercy when they could have chosen revenge. Their voice echoed across the galaxy, carried by former enemies who had become allies. A warning that was also a hope. A threat that was also an offer of friendship. Run while you can. Not because humanity wanted to chase, but because humanity remembered what happened when the warning was ignored, and they hoped that others would be wise enough to listen. In the end, that was what made humanity truly dangerous. Not their weapons or their tactics. Not their ability to adapt or their refusal to surrender. It was their capacity for mercy. Their willingness to offer peace even to those who had wronged them. Their understanding that today's enemy could become tomorrow's ally. That was the lesson the galaxy learned. That was the warning that echoed through the stars. And it was a lesson written not in the ashes of destroyed civilizations, but in the hope of those who chose to listen before it was too late.